I like maps because they don't tell the truth. They don't tell me the sometimes brutal reality of what history portrays. It's a way of depicting a place without all of the gory details, as it were. Poland's just one example of a country whose geographical identity became incredibly different. I don't have a Polish heritage. I don't have a Polish family history. What honestly got me interested in Poland was the map. And what I mean by that is it's a country, a large country, the map of which has had so many different shapes in its history over the past centuries. It's a very rich history going back more than 1,000 years, 1,200 years. If you think about the time in the 17th century, Poland or the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth was an area, a major player in Europe, and it was an impressive area on the map that stretched from the Baltic Sea in the north to the Black Sea in the south. I have this map on the wall to the left there. That's what Poland looked like in the interwar period between World War I and World War II, 1918 to 1939. And you have Germany in the west and Belarus and Ukraine to the east. And it's an area that's about the size of Poland today, but this is what kind of hooked me studying that country, was the map. After World War II, Poland shifted by about 50% to the west. The land area was pretty close to about the same, but it moved over by half, essentially. So there were these parts of, if you look at the map up there in the middle, this is what happened to Germany with the partitions after World War II. Part of those republics inside of the Soviet Union at that point. And so it wasn't just as simple as redrawing a map, lines on a map. Although if you're looking at a map, that does seem like a simple exercise, and that's what Churchill and Roosevelt and Stalin met to do later. Truman, after Roosevelt passed away, in conferences at the end of World War II in Tehran and then Yalta and then finally Potsdam, where they established the borders of Europe. And along with that came mass waves of migration. Estimates are between 9 and 14 million Germans migrated westward to further west in Germany, and some of them to other countries. And that's just Germany, right? And then you have all of the Poles and Ukrainians, Poles who are moving into those places, and Ukrainians moving into the places that Poles were driven out of by these new maps that were drawn. And so, yeah, I guess 20th century history and that event, and certainly the world wars and the way those maps became so radically different in a short period of time. You have a couple different versions of what Europe looked like, for example, in the first half of the 20th century. History can kind of fill in the gaps between, what one map and another map might tell you. They might present what look like contrasting pictures, and yet there's an entire history. There are lots of stories there. We're talking about how maps can be deceptive, despite them being fascinating. They're simple and yet complex, and this is the poem that really helps tell that story. So I'll read the English translation of this poem. This appeared in the New Yorker magazine, and the translation is by Claire Kavanaugh. This is Map by Wisława Szymborska. Flat as the table it's placed on, nothing moves beneath it, and it seeks no outlet. Above, my human breath creates no stirring air and leaves its total surface undisturbed. Its plains, valleys are always green, uplands, mountains are yellow and brown, while seas, oceans remain a kindly blue beside the tattered shores. Everything here is small, near, accessible. I can press volcanoes with my fingertip, stroke the poles without thick mittens. I can, with a single glance, encompass every desert with the river lying just beside it. A few trees stand for ancient forests. You couldn't lose your way among them. In the east and west, above and below the equator, quiet like pins dropping, and in every black pinprick, people keep on living. Mass graves and sudden ruins are out of the picture. Nations' borders are barely visible, as if they wavered, to be or not. I like maps because they lie, because they give no access to the vicious truth, because great-heartedly, good-naturedly, they spread before me a world not of this world. Well, the answer is that they're all true to a certain extent, or they all have some truth, or they all were true at a certain time. And I think that's what makes some of these places interesting. Places like Central and Eastern Europe with such volatile pasts geographically are fascinating to investigate. Those cities and spaces can be some of the most fascinating, I think.